say on him compared to everyone else pretty much that I've seen. I'm a big fan of Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame. The Pittsburgh Steelers took him at the 49th overall pick in this draft in the second round. He was born in Canada, just like you, Mike. He's a physical freak. There were some headlines that said the Steelers may try him at tight end. He's, to me, if I look at a comp just physically and from what I see on the tape, play style wise, he's like a mix of Evan Ingram and like Mike Evans in terms of just the way he plays. I'm not saying he's going to be that good, but just the play style. And I think that could fit into the Steelers pretty well. Alex, what are your takes here on Claypool?
I mean, Claypool's a beast of an athlete, 6'4", 238 pounds with a 4.42 40-yard dash time. That's insane, and he is kind of that hybrid tight end receiver. I actually think the Steelers drafted him to start him on the outside. Juju Smith-Schuster has really struggled as an outside receiver. I really think they want to move Juju back into the slot and put Diontae Johnson and Claypool on the outside. So I think Juju's actually a winner here. As far as Claypool himself, I do think he beats out James Washington on the depth chart. Personally, I'm really high on Diontae Johnson. So I think if Claypool's going to succeed, Diontae Johnson's going to have to succeed too. But I look at this offense. The Steelers' offense was absolutely brutal last season. It's tough to, just go ahead and throw it out of your memory because it burned so many people last year, myself included. But 2 seasons ago, Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, this was a huge outlier. This was the big Antonio Brown and Juju year. But he threw the ball 675 times, which, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get back up to that kind of passing volume this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go up from around 500 attempts last year closer to 600 this year. So you look at the offense as a whole, Juju's definitely going to get more targets. Claypool, Diontae Johnson, James Washington, Eric Ebron, James Conner. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. So when I think about Chase Claypool in a redraft setting, it's kind of the same as we've said about a lot of these guys. I don't think he's going to find himself as the number 2 option. I think he's going to be the number 3. He's going to compete with Ebron in the red zone. But for Dynasty, I love Chase Claypool. I think he's one of my favorite receivers in this class. There is some question marks at the quarterback position once Ben Roethlisberger retires. He's definitely closing that window. But, I mean, I just think about the Steelers, and this was the first pick they had in this draft. And they have young receivers in Juju, Diontae Johnson, and James Washington. They know Big Ben's window is closing, so they could have addressed anything, and they decided to address the receiver position with the first pick they had in this draft. They went Claypool. I think because of that, they're going to use him a lot, and he's going to be a pretty solid player for years to come.
Look, this is going to make you guys unhappy, but Claypool is probably like my top fade of the year. He's just someone I'm just not going to have on any of my teams.
Hey, I'm glad we're having this many disagreements because we can run it back at the end of the season and start tallying up the score.
Yeah, so Claypool is like a worse version of Michael Pittman from like a profile perspective because he's someone that really didn't do much until his last year, and obviously you saw his physical gifts take over as a senior, and like those types of guys where they win in like very specific ways just don't translate as well or at least as easily to the NFL. And if he was a tight end, look, I'd be all over him because he, like you said, he is another Evan Ingram. But as an outside wide receiver facing opposing teams, first or second cornerbacks, I just don't see him being able to win that battle. And it kind of reminds me of like, I really love Diontae Johnson. I think he's probably their best perimeter wide receiver in terms of the way he wins, the routes that he can run, and the way he beats people off the press line of scrimmage. But Claypool, when I watch him, I just don't see it. And look, he's an athletic freak, but there are a lot of athletic freaks that come to the NFL and they don't work out. And like you said, I think it's a big win for Juju. And I think if you can get any type of discount on Diontae Johnson because people think Chase Claypool will take over, I would definitely jump on that. But in terms of redraft or dynasty or whatever format, I'm just not going to have any shares of Chase Claypool.
Hey, that's fair. And yeah, I don't know how big I am on Claypool for this year. I think that's where long term, I think the Steelers historically have done a pretty good job of developing those wide receivers, so I think he can also improve. I look at just the physical gifts. You mentioned some of them. The only other player who's 6 foot, 235 or more and was able to run a sub 4.45 40 was Megatron. Now, I'm not making that comp by any means, but I do feel like Claypool could find his way into some flex value in redraft year one should somebody go down. I'm with you guys. I'm very high on Johnson. I don't know if they necessarily just give all those targets right over from Washington to Claypool, especially just as a rookie. One thing, and Alex, you mentioned where he's going to line up on that Steelers wide receiver core. I could see him in the slot as well as the outside, and I think that's something where the Steelers could use some ambiguity to throw off defenses by switching Juju and Claypool around in the formation. We know he dominated when he was in the slot with AB on the outside. They brought in Ebron, so I don't think Claypool's going to get his shot at tight end. It's a crowded landing spot, but I would not mind grabbing him in Dynasty. I personally would take him over Laviska Shenault. And who knows, maybe Cam Newton comes in to back up Big Ben, and that's where the Steelers go next. At least that's what I'd like to see.
That'd be awesome.